Hey, this is Matt O'Leary, and it's time for the inaugural New Music Monthly episode. I'm going to cover a bunch of albums and singles from the past month that I either loved and found and were fresh and new and exciting, or ones that I was really anticipating and maybe they were middling or even disappointing. So, very much a range in that sense. There'll be some mainstream, some more well-known stuff, and there'll also be plenty of obscure albums and oddball picks too. First up is a tasty new single called Strangers from what I would call the Dream Theater of Bluegrass. And before you just rage quit this video, you gotta know this is very progressive pop. It's very singer-songwriter, which really is the direction the band's gone with its last few albums. And if you're not familiar with Chris Thile or Nickel Creek, this is a three-piece band. Chris plays the mandolin, Sarah Watkins plays the violin, and her brother Sean Watkins plays the acoustic guitar. And they all sing very beautifully. I think they started like early 90s as kids. And if you look up this band, if you just search Nickel Creek live 90s, you'll find these three kids at these little bluegrass festivals in California. And they're just absolutely shredding, just going back and forth. Just and they have an 18-track album coming in March. And this song just has me so excited for this thing. It's got these signature three-part harmonies that are weaving in between the finger-picked guitar and the violin and the mandolin, and it's all just working so beautifully. I love how the song just builds in tension as they trade off on lead vocals and these noodly solo passages. The chorus hits so hard, the musicianship is off the charts as usual, but this band always has the listener in mind in the end. They're not just noodling, but they have the melody and the song at the core of things, and this one is excellent and so haunting. Next up is one of my most anticipated albums of the year. This is from the one and only Lemon Twigs. This new song, Corner My Eye, is flirtatious, it's retro, it's goofy, it's compositionally off the charts good, and that's really the Lemon Twigs formula right there. The album release date hasn't been shared yet, but usually the Twigs play this mashup of glam rock and 70s ballad inspired kind of stuff. It's two brothers, Michael and Brian D'Addario, and between them it's very different approaches to songwriting. You kind of got that McCartney-Lennon sort of thing going on where you get slingshot between styles from song to song. Michael is a weird guy, for sure. He always seems to be kind of playing a character. He's more theatrical, and he's just unhinged. You never know what's going to come out, and his sound palette just seems to be a little bit more aggressive. Whereas Brian is the melody master, he's the McCartney. He's got a very sincere and more honest sounding voice, and usually his songs are a little bit more pastoral and softer, but much more harmonically and melodically complex. Corner My Eye is a Brian song, like through and through. You got classical guitar, you got very 70s kind of dusty drum sound with brushes and vibes and Brian's high croon. It's 70s AOR, for sure. It's got that bucolic and beautiful sound, and it just has me stoked about this album. Finally, for singles of albums that aren't out yet, I gotta shout out this prog rock band from Denmark, totally new to me, but wow, I am so ready for this thing, and they're a band called Isbjorg, I think. They sing in English, and the song is called Ornament. Early on, you'll hear this kind of atmospheric post-rock sort of thing, but then the vocals kick in, and it's got such a strong pop sensibility, which just continues in spades on the chorus. This is totally a coincidence, but you gotta draw some comparison to Mew. They're from Denmark. It's got to be in there somewhere. But really, this band draws influence from a lot of different places, and it's very obvious. I hear so many different things in this music. I hear some Haken, like there's that kind of Ross Jennings vocal line during the main part of the song, and then towards the end of it, they just break into this very Haken, very heavy thing, totally different from the rest of the song, and I'm loving it. But most of the song has a softness to it that's lended by the piano, which is really driving the song, and it's kind of jazzy as well. But again, that ending with the dissonant, distorted riff just comes out of nowhere. The vocals are just cacophonous. It's really hard to write a chorus so catchy that's also so oddly timed, but they pull it off, and you gotta check this thing out. If you like prog, if you like prog metal, especially anything more modern or poppier, then yeah, check it out. I've also been digging into the new one from the Swedish progressive metal band Katatonia. This one's Sky Void of Stars. This is the 12th album in their discography, and really I've just skimmed the surface with them. Their last one from 2020 though really caught my attention. It was called City Burials, and it had a much wider dynamic range, I think. A lot of their albums tend to sound a little bit flat dynamically, but that one just seemed to have more ebb and flow. It had lower and softer parts. It had more intense parts. It was their dark, atmospheric, but very busy sound just brought to another level with better production, better arrangements. The arrangements were rich. They were layered. They took time to tease out, which is why I'm giving this one just the benefit of the doubt. I'm listening again and again. It hasn't quite clicked yet, but I trust that there's something good there. I mean, all the elements of the typical Katatonia are there. There's nothing really shocking. It does feel like one song kind of bleeds into the next a little bit. Like I'm not sucked in, and oftentimes a couple songs can pass and I forget I'm listening, that might be the compression. It might be some production choice. But nonetheless, there's plenty to dig into here. This band's sound is very sophisticated for this genre, I think. More than a lot of other bands who do this thing. And, chances are pretty good this one's going to stay on repeat. In a similar vein of notoriety in progressive rock is the band Riverside. This band can be dark, not quite as dark as Katatonia. And their new album is a great lament of our online algorithmic world. Songs like Friend and Foe and Post-Truth speak to this lack of trust in our institutions and even in each other, as we fall prey to mob mentality and reactionary psychology and all these cognitive biases that are driven by lowered attention spans. He doesn't really mention all of that on ID.Entity, but those are the kind of conversations that this is getting you to think about. One of the songs is called Landmine Blasts. It's obviously about this kind of online cancel culture or mob culture, which I don't think is done all that differently on this album. Thematically and psychologically, it's not really groundbreaking, and oftentimes I feel like it can think it's smarter than it is. The singer Marius Duda, you got a very theatrical delivery, you got these spoken word bits, and none of that really helps with this feeling extreme right or extreme left. But the musicality of it can outweigh that for me if it's done really well, and this is done really well. There are some really aggressive sections that harken back to their earlier period, which really is the part of the band's discography that I love a lot. And, songs like Big Tech Brother and Landmine Blast, just a little bit heavier and grittier sound. Next up is an album by the band Helvetia, which I just discovered, and they're from Seattle. I think it's really just a one-man show at this point. Jason Albertini used to be with the band Duster, so if you're familiar with them, kind of a similar vein. But he's, for the last couple of years, just been doing his own thing and putting out a ton of records. I heard that he was on the label Joyful Noise, and, he's just made so many bedroom records that it's got to be self-released at that point. The label's probably like, I don't know what to do with this guy. This new one is called You Shot Past the Moon Scapegoat. This is very lo-fi indie rock stuff, and it's perfectly characterized by the extremely inconsistent use of capitalization on all these song titles. Think like Built to Spill or Granddaddy or like the band The Glands. It's very similar, but more half-baked and a lot darker. Yet the writing and the progressions are captivating, and really it's just, he's capturing magic here. Like there are some moments that are really great, and it's a very, very strange record, like weird. It's got a little kind of Syd Barrett sort of thing going on to it. Like I think of the album The Madcap Laughs. The song Eunuch is just a trip. Great guitar work, like on the whole thing. And, it's a really dark, it's a really sad record, but at the heart of it, there's a light that really does burn bright. The self-described world's best American band are back with their 4th album. It's from White Reaper. This one's called Asking for a Ride. I remember that first album, White Reaper Does It Again. That thing was truly grimy and grungy, but also very poppy, kind of garage punk, I would say, and I go back to it a lot. Probably every year I go back and really have a good time. Their last album, You Deserve Love, was so pristine. It was just pure stadium power pop, like very smooth and agreeable. The first track, Asking for a Ride, just turns that around. It's breaking out the 80s hair metal riffs, and really this album is stepping back in a heavier direction, but not quite as garagey, not quite as rough around the edges as the early stuff, but still very catchy. Like, it's got this 80s rock and classic rock thing going on, a little bit of the Cars and maybe some Def Leppard thrown in. I love the song Getting in Trouble with the Boss. I love Bozo, really good stuff. I think the band Turnstile is a pretty good reference point as far as modern bands. But this singer, Tony Esposito, is far better in my opinion. He just has a lot more character to his voice. All right, moving a little faster through these now. We got one that is moving away from the garage sound, moving away from this rugged rock and roll and more towards a kind of soul-influenced rock sound, and that is Gaz Coombes with Turn the Car Around. Really like this one. And then another left turn. I love the new JYOCHO EP. That is some good Japanese math rock right there. Some good Japanese math rock. And I do not say that lightly. There is a lot of music there. That is a very, very fertile scene. Last but not least is an album I missed from 2022. Can't believe it. The band AM Overcast put out a new album. This is this project from a guy named Alex Latinsky, and it's the follow-up to 2017's Drown to You, which was this mathy, proggy, very emo little album that just rocked my world. AM Overcast music is like a runaway train of quirky, mathy riffs and big hooks. Any given section, like any given hook or little moment, is just played one time. You get it, then it's gone. So his albums are like 20 minutes long because it's just pure firepower from start to finish. This one, again, is math rock, it's prog, it's emo, it's pop punk. It's got all that mixed up in it, and it's so good. It's genius. Again, this is AM Overcast. That's AM Overcast. This is a self-titled album. I probably don't like it quite as much as Drown to You, but I love it, and it probably would have landed in my top 15 if I would have discovered it earlier, but it was April. I don't know. Where was I in April? But hopefully if that blend of genres is of any interest to you at all, then go listen. Just enjoy a very unique thing. And that's it. Those are all the albums that really caught my interest from the past month. I'm sure you have more, so leave a comment below because you got to share those deep winter finds with me. And as always, thank you so much for watching.